A.T. Young is the author. He's an author. He's worked in D.C. for years. His book is called, and let me flip it over here, How Big Government Unleashed America's Socialist Left, Unprecedented Assault. And I love the way it's got Washington, and I believe it's Stalin on the front of the book. The switchover that happened in America, how quickly it happened, even though it kind of crept in. Boom, there it was. JT joins me now. Hi, JT.
Hey, Fawn, it's such a pleasure to be with you today.
It's really good to have you, too, because I swear on everything that's holy, when I was a kid, I never dreamt our country would be this confused.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And if you're fortunate enough to have lived long enough to have some perspective, it's truly amazing when you think that it was not long ago that Democrat politicians were afraid to even be labeled as liberals, and now they are adopting the term socialist.
That's because they've see. I think the people who are representatives now are the ones from the '60s who were doing all the drugs and acid and stuff like that, and now they're leading the country. And then their children, obviously brain damaged, become liberals and start doing crazy socialist stuff, thinking socialism is a good idea. And a very dear friend that I grew up with thinks socialism is a good idea, but she can't tell me why. She thinks the money just falls out of the sky. And I no disrespect, JT, but I almost always read the books of the authors that I have on my show. But I just got your book day before yesterday, so I read as much as I could last night. But I was befuddled because it's so true. With Biden and the rest of them, they moved very quickly to the left, and it just happened so fast.
Right. I mean, you're talking about, and obviously in the book, I lay the historical foundation for it, but the visible appearance really has been 10 years, and you could go back to Bernie Sanders running in 2016. A self-avowed democratic socialist. He's always gone that label. He's won in Vermont. Suddenly he runs for president, not even a true Democrat. I mean, he labels himself an independent in the Senate, and he caucuses with the Democrats, but he doesn't call himself a Democrat, but he runs in their primary, and he would have beaten Hillary Clinton had it not been for the superdelegates. He had all the energy. And that was in 2016. And then in the course of the next 10 years, we have seen this incredible move. And it has just been member after member. You were just mentioning, the people from the 60s and the new generation, AOC and Bernie Sanders. What do we have right now, 10 years later? The hottest ticket in the Democrat rally circuit is their tour together.
And it's AOC and this Jasmine Crockett who can't do a speech without dropping every nasty word that can possibly. She's so rancid, and so am I when I've had like 4 beers. But I'm just saying, this woman is sober and she's talking like this at rallies. So. They're trying to make it seem like capitalism is a bad thing. They keep talking about how socialism is better, capitalism is a bad thing. Capitalism is the only reason America is as great as it is, and everybody else knows it. So people who come here from other countries, they are absolutely guffawed at the fact that we have people who grew up in America who want to go to what they tried to escape.
Yeah, you're so right, Fawn. And as the book argues, the Constitution laid a perfect foundation for capitalism. It is absolutely, and the wedding of the two, this rigorous limitation of government, and that's what the Constitution is. Anybody who doubts it, just read it, and you should read it anyway. It's a very short read. Everything in there is a limitation on the powers of government.
And, these guys were geniuses.
Then it laid the foundation for an explosive growth of capitalism. And capitalism was already here. I mean, that's really what was driving the revolution. It wasn't just taxes alone. It was the colonists were, were weighed down by British regulations, British rules, and they didn't want any part of it. And the explosion that we have seen in American growth, American prosperity, it's all due to capitalism.
Yeah, I get a kick out of the No King's Day they just held because the guy who was the empty puppet was the one trying to mandate what kind of stove, ceiling fan, water heater, dryer, furnace, everything that you could have. I mean, we were going to be living in dirt huts, eating our own gardens here pretty soon if they would have had their way. And they're like, No King Day. I'm like, we had a No King Day. It was called July 4th, 1776. So whatever. But this drives me nuts because when I talk to people who are deep into the socialist mindset, it's because they literally do not understand what socialism means. And if they don't want a No King Day, they better not want socialism because you're going to have one.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Vaughn. And it's so funny when you talk to people who profess being adherents to socialism. Not only can they not explain what it is, they can't point to any examples where it works either.
It never has. That's why.
No. And they conveniently dance over that. And it's amazing to me how you would think that any rational person would be, if you're presented with a system, you would ask yourself, well, show me, like you were going to go buy a car. I want to take it on a test drive. Show me where this has worked. And the idea that you couldn't take the car on a test drive and have it go around the block, you'd never buy the car. And yet the socialist adherents are more than happy to hop behind the wheel of socialism that has never made it around the block even once.
And they can't even find the windshield wipers. It's like I'm sitting there going, socialism has never worked. Well, we would do it differently. We would do it right. And I'm like, no, we wouldn't. You can't even decide what gender you are. So you can't do it right. You can't even do life. So no. But it drives me crazy, the limitations they want to put on everybody except themselves. Keep that in mind, JT. Except themselves. Right. They want to do whatever they want. But we need to vote stupid or not stupid in this country and just separate the two and let them live together because, they've lost it.
Well, I think, sadly, and I always feel so badly for the level-minded people who live in California, but, we sort of have started to separate them, and you feel sorry for the people who are trapped in some of these crazy enclaves, the deep blue areas. And, of course, they are leaving. All you have to do is look at, population trends. But you feel sorry for people who are trapped in some of these enclaves that have just gone into the Looney Tune atmosphere.
Yeah, totally Looney Tune. I have a friend who's lived there for 30 years. I lived there for a while. I was like, get me the hell out of here. But he always tells me, he goes, I can't take it anymore. And he calls me Fonzie, which is sad. But he says, Fonzie, please help me. Help me come up with a way to argue with them. I'm like, just use common sense, Lance. You don't have to have an argument. They don't know what they're talking about. They'll just shout at you and cite things that they heard on TV. All you have to do is read them the Constitution. The framers of this country were genius. They were absolutely genius. I don't know how they must have had a crystal ball, JT, that they saw what might happen.
No, and when you think about it, you look back and you read the day-to-day deliberations, and these are actually, intricately set down. Madison specifically picked, James Madison, the founding father, specifically picked a seat in the very center of the room, sat there right up front, and he wrote down everything. So we have incredible, detail of the deliberations that took place. And just as you said, not only were they genius as to what they did, but they did it over the course of one summer. Government can't pass anything now except over, arduous months or years. They get it wrong. And these men sat inside of an unair-conditioned room in Philadelphia through the summer and hammered out the Constitution.
And they smelled really bad, just going to say. But I'm just going to put this forth though, because we have so many Facebook warriors who say, "I've read the Constitution. It doesn't say that." Yes, it does. It does say that, and it says that our rights shall not be infringed. And so, I don't know what part of that y'all don't understand when it comes to the Second Amendment or even the First Amendment. It's freedom of religion, not from it. I mean, they try to take one word and switch it around to make what they want, ideally, in the Constitution, and it's not there. But they knew what it was like to live under a king, to live under somebody who taxed them without representation. They knew what that was like. And I don't understand why anyone would want that back. All you have to do is look around the world at places where it's still ongoing, like China. There's no way I'd want to live like that. It's Orwellian.
No, it is, and it's so funny that you mention it, because I've been doing a lot of research on COVID, and you forget that during COVID, China basically withdrew again into the private kingdom that it had been for a long time, and for 3 years it sealed itself off, and the depredations that were done to their own people under the COVID lockdowns there, as bad as they were here, and as much as we bridle, they weren't even a fraction of what the Chinese people had to endure. And to your point, it was only the riots and the social unrest became so great in China that they basically had to change their strategy at the last minute.
I had a Chinese foreign exchange student when COVID hit. So it was a whole thing on trying to get him home as fast as possible because his parents had to get him home immediately. Everybody was recalled. It was crazy. It was just crazy. So I don't know why the left has decided to adopt the culture of socialism. I don't know why they would want to put those type of rules on themselves. I wish to God I could have finished your book, because I was reading and reading and reading as fast as I could so I wouldn't sound like an idiot on the air. But the entitlement of the left has just, it is off the charts. And you have a chapter on entitlement that I did read, and their entitlement takes away so many rights of people with freedom of religion in this country. And under socialism, you don't even get to have religion, really.
No. The one thing that the socialists left, and all authoritarian regimes, they will not accept limitations on their power. And so just as you mentioned, religion, anything that threatens the state version of what the truth is, the state message, they will not accept it. So, of course, religion goes out. They're not going to allow people to have literal pulpits to speak to the people in an unfiltered way. And, you see that throughout all of socialism, and that's always the way it goes, because socialism fails. It fails from the beginning, and socialists know that they are going to encounter resistance. That's why you always see socialism associated with violence. They are expropriating the wealth of people who have it in order to redistribute it. So they know they're going to get an opposition. And as their systems begin to fail, as they always do, they then have to enforce that. So they are, from the very beginning, wedded to a strong internal, whether it's a secret police or a very visible police. That's always the case with socialism.
Oh, always. And it always has been. It always will be. They seem to think that everybody's going to just live for free. Like I said, money's going to fall out of the sky. They think all the rich should give up their money. I don't know why, because if they were rich, they wouldn't want to. But, I just, no matter what, they keep talking about the have and the have-nots in this country. I'm like, socialism is all about haves and have-nots. There will literally be a line of demarcation of people who get to eat and people who don't. If you have socialism, it's a fact. So I only have about a minute left. JT, what would you like to add?
I think just what you were saying, that we need to understand that how different this is. America was known for centuries as being an unusual case that we had no socialist movement. And that was really the genesis for the book, to flip the question around and say, in contrast to the old question of why is there no socialism in America, the book was really written as an explanation as to why there is socialism in America now for the very first time.
And it's shocking how quickly we allowed it to happen. It seemed like it snuck up on us, but it didn't. It was there, and it was creeping in, and then all of a sudden it was in our face. So how big government unleashed America's socialist left? Unprecedented assault. Where is it available, sir?
You can go to the book's website, jt-young.com. It can be ordered from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, the Real Clear Publishing, who's my publisher, their website. So jt-young.com will give you all the information, the reviews that have been very positive on the book, and little snippets from it. So you can it's a one-stop shop.
Yeah. Make sure you get a copy today. Thank you, JT.
Thank you so much, Fawn. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
You too, sir. Thank you. Bye-bye.